Welcome. You are about to take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition show. For the next hour, allow her to prepare you in becoming a magnet for a profound love-infused relationship by identifying and focusing on solutions through love. Awaken the light within and let your essence shine. And now, here's Deborah Beauvais on Love by Intuition, all part of the Dream Vision 7 radio
Welcome,
network.
Everyone. Bonjour, mes amis. And yes, here I am, Deborah Beauvais, founder and owner of the Dream Vision 7 radio network. And if you're tuning in for the first time, we are a Boston-based syndicated internet radio station with all the bells and whistles. You can listen to us regardless of what country you live in, what state you're in. You can listen with Alexa. You can listen in the cars, everywhere. And we are proud to be the media partner for the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, which is opening after this pandemic. They're opening up in July. So because of our partnership, you can actually attend online or whichever, face-to-face, and get 20% off specific workshops that they are offering. So check that out by going on our site, Dream Visions, all one word with an S on the end, the number 7, radio.com. Well, we have an excellent guest that I'm delighted to have today, and he is Carl Greer. You can also go on our site and listen to previous interviews he's had with some of our other hosts. And so I'm looking forward to talking with him. He's a PhD. He's also a PhD on clinical psychologist. He's a Jungian analyst, a businessman, a shamanic practitioner, award-winning author. Change your story, change your life, and change the story of your health. And today we're going to be focusing on his memoir, The Necktie and the Jaguar. And what a story it is. It's very interesting, all the things that he has experienced before he became a shaman. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Carl.
Good to be here, Deborah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And as I said before we came on the air, it's an honor because you've really done so much work to, elevate the human race, help people to heal and find joy, and that's what we're all here to do, is to really serve and make a difference and make an impact before we leave and others come forth. And I know you're on that same mind, I always say, wave, with thinking that way, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So as far as your book, and I love the title, The Necktie and the Jaguar. I'm assuming what that all means, but tell the listeners why you chose that title.
Well, the first part of my life, I grew up in the Midwest. I was born in Pittsburgh, and then my dad was in the steel industry. We lived in Gary, Indiana, then back in Pittsburgh. So I had inculcated in me, Deborah, pretty traditional values. A guy graduated from college, if he went to college, got a job, stayed with the same company for 45 years, retired. If he was lucky, he had a wife and family, and that was kind of the world that I grew up in. And I did some of those things. I went to college, got a degree, but then I ended up teaching at Columbia University for a few years in the graduate school of business. Then I became a businessman in Chicago in the oil and gas industry. And I did that up until my middle 40s. I continued to do that even through today, but then I decided I wanted to explore other areas that had interested me early in my life, psychology being one. So I got a degree in clinical psychology. It took me 8 years, and that kind of opened me up from kind of the constraints that I had felt, which was kind of the metaphor of the necktie, kind of the tight thing around your throat. And from clinical psychology, I got interested in Jungian psychology. I became a Jungian analyst, and I'd always had an interest in Eastern philosophy and shamanism. And I started to practice Qigong and started to take some courses in shamanism, and ended up spending many journeys around the world working with different shamans, so that for the last 20-some years of my life, shamanism has been very important to me. And in the last 10 years, I've focused a lot of my time in philanthropy and giving back. So I've had kind of a traditional life, and I've had a more esoteric life, and right now I'm kind of in the end stages of it, trying to continue to give back as much as I can.
Mm. Yes. Now, in the book, when you were a little boy, and the times were different, but you actually traveled. You took off for the day and traveled quite far from your family home, and then would come back. And during that time, you actually experienced a ring of light around a tree. And if you could describe at that age, to describe to the listeners what you were feeling, and then I wonder if that really was the catalyst that ignited, the shamanism and just learning and yearning to want to know more about your higher self.
I was 4 or 5 years old. We lived in a suburb of Pittsburgh, Mount Lebanon, and I did wander around a lot. I would wander around a lot, and one day I went to the end of our street. There was a small farm there, and I went onto the property. It was, summertime, and there was an apple tree, and I had this experience, Deborah, of this tree having a glow around it, and I just felt part of the tree, and I had never had an experience like that before, and it took me years to have one since, where I just felt one with that experience, and it stuck with me. So I think somehow in my hardwiring, it got hardwired, and other experiences, shamanic experiences and life experiences then replicated that in one way or another as I got much older.
Yes, I can sense that, being so young. And really, I believe that at that age, kids are still connected to the light and the other side anyway. So things can happen, and they're so wise, and this is why some of the toddlers teach us. And I can see how you would hang on to that. And what an experience. So tell us about why you, going from there, you were nourishing your mythopoetic self, and explain what that actually means.
Well, for me, as a high school kid, I liked liberal arts. I liked to read, and maybe a little daydreamer, dreamer kind of guy, and I felt that would not serve me well. And I would say that was part of myself that was more poetic and wanted to be more spiritual. So I decided I wanted to burn that out of me, and I took engineering at Lehigh, metallurgical engineering, to try to burn that part of me out, because I didn't think it would serve me in the world that I was growing up in. And I've had yearnings for that mythopoetic self, which is that part of me that wants to explore the mysteries and spirituality. And for me, it's that part of me that had not been expressed. The necktie and the Jaguar was helping me to find a way to express that.
Mm-hmm. And do you agree now that, we're really wired before we come to go through all these experiences? And in essence, I believe they're, how difficult some of them are. We're really growing our souls while we're here, and as I mentioned in the early part of the show, making a difference. But we're here to really learn how to love ourselves from the depths of who we are, find out the truth of who we are and embrace it. And kind of, I know myself, there are times where I'm like, oh, Deborah, and I have to chuckle about it because just the things that come out of our mouths, or we might think it's like, oh my gosh, but yet
right.
we're wired to be more on the negative side, and the journey is to get to the light and the positive side.
Yes. Yeah, well put. I think we all have things intrude one way or the other into our lives, these spiritual experiences. Part of my other writing has been, how do we use those to make differences in our everyday life? And so I think we short-circuit ourselves or shortchange ourselves by not incorporating them into our everyday life. But it's hard work because we get into robotic, habitual ways of living that we can live 60, 80 years like that without ever changing much.
Right. Yeah, and now, do you, with all the work that you've done, are you at peace with your childhood? I know from personal experience and from working with others, most times as we go through our healing journey, we come to a place of peace and really understanding that our parents came from their parents, and a lot of the behavior, not only the belief systems, but the behavior comes from the only thing that they knew with growing up, especially if you don't have the opportunity to get out into the world and see other cultures and other families and things of that sort.
I agree. And as to whether or not I'm more at peace, I would say I am more at peace. One of the shamanic ideas is that the past experiences are what they are, but how they live within us can change. And that would be kind of a goal of therapy as well. So I would say my experiences as a result of my life are living in me a little differently than they used to. A good analyst friend of mine, when I asked him, I said, do you ever get, his name was Lee, do you ever get past these kind of feelings that come up from within that kind of overtake you? And he said, I don't know, Carl, probably not, but maybe they come up a little less frequently, a little less intensely, and last a little less long. And I think for all of us, some of these upsurges, if we can have that be an end place, is not all bad.
Right. Very well. Good point. Very well shared, because we are human. I mean, we are here experiencing and all the different pieces, and we've got responsibilities at the same time. And to balance that, and I want to ask you, how do you balance now, knowing, mainstream America, per se, which you lived in for 40-something years, and then balancing that with the spiritual side, knowing that we have the life force within, we are spiritual. So how do you balance that today?
Within myself, I try to honor spirit. I try to have ceremony and ritual in one form or another to just honor that larger energy of which we came from, which we'll go back to, of which we're all a part as we speak. And I do that by fire ceremony. I do that by shamanic journeying. I do that by spending time in nature and honoring nature. So those are ways that I try to incorporate that into my life. And then, as I said, I'm trying to take my yoga off the mat and bring my spirituality into concrete things, and one way for me to do that is to help people less fortunate. I've been fortunate in some of the business endeavors that I've been involved with, so I'm trying to give back some of those resources to those who life has maybe not given the same chance that others of us have had.
Right, right. So tell us about the Greer Foundation. That's still going, and what are you doing there?
Right now, we're working with about 60 charities, and there's 850 Greer scholars, past and present, all of them from underserved communities. Black men and women, Native American men and women, Hispanic men and women. That's kind of our primary group, who otherwise might not be able to go to college in a STEM program. So we're helping them with money get into schools, but then when they're there, we're working with the schools to help that group graduate on time, stay in STEM, have research opportunities, have internships, and when they graduate, get jobs that allow them to make good income that they, if they so choose, can get back into their communities and make a difference. So I don't know if you ever saw the movie Deborah, Rudy. It's about a guy from south of Chicago who was a walk-on at Notre Dame, and it's like the underdog Horatio Alger's kind of story. And I've always been interested in those kind of stories. So we're trying to help battered women and Vietnam vets who have PTSD, and the homeless, and people in Peru, for example, or Egypt, that just are living in the slums, and trying to make a difference with that group of people.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I mean, isn't it, it's an amazing group of people. There's so much work to be done. I wish that everyone would see that at all levels, whether it's, political or otherwise. We've lived so long with the focus on greed and ego, and I understand all that, but it's a time. And let me ask you, with the pandemic, it's been horrendous for many, and many people have family members that have passed or crossed over. And yet, with all of this heaviness, I feel as though we're in an evolution as a species, and there's so much work to be done, and we're living it, Carl. We're in the midst of history where we can actually, elevate to a kinder, across the board, a kinder human race. Do you feel that? Do you feel that we're in this evolution?
I don't know. I hope so. You can look at the polarities that just seem more severe than they've been in a long, long time, or you can say what you just said and say, no, there's glimmerings of light that we're moving towards. I'm always struck by these time frames, Deborah. If our particular universe is, so let's say 14 billion years old, and the Earth is 4 or 5 billion years old, and humans have been around for, maybe the most 150,000 years, or similar. In these big time frames, we're talking about such a little time frame, even since the Industrial Revolution, and there has been so much that's changed, and there are many people who have become enlightened and done wonderful things. But there's also a lot of evil and bad in the world. And to your question, are we at a new place right now that's going to make a change? I don't know that. I hope so. In my small way, I'm trying to do what I can to, make a difference in that direction. But it's, I think it's an ongoing process, and the metaphysical questions. What is the creative energy, spirit? How much are they involved in our everyday life, and what is the destiny of the creative force of the universe and all the other universes that I believe are probably out there and being birthed every second? That's a a big metaphysical question. But I do believe at one level it's an energy of agape type love, and how that manifests in individual lives. I don't really understand that.
Right. Yeah, who knows? You're right. I mean, who knows? With that said, I think those of us that are holding the vibration of love, so that and people can look at that as, well, what's love? But we're talking about, we're created from love, from source, and so let's utilize that love in raising the vibration, and even with healing, by using that mind-body connection, which brings me to think of your wife, Pat. Tell us that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had surgery, and you were in the Sedona area. Share how the two of you helped Pat heal.
She had breast cancer, and it had gone into her lymph nodes. So she had the surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and one of the wounds on her breast started to get infected, and it started to ooze blood and pus. And we were out in Sedona, and this was in the 1980s, kind of later part of the 1980s, and I had just been reading a book by Michael Harner about shamanic journeying, and just coincidentally I had picked up a crystal, and I had some of the drumming tapes and the didgeridoo tapes just with me on this trip. I don't know why I brought it, but I did. So this happened in Sedona, and I just had this image of maybe doing some work, if Pat were willing, which he was, to see if we could get some healing around her breast. So I had set up this space, and then I had this image, Deborah, of me sitting under a tree with a crystal, and then there was a woman in a lagoon type thing, and with a crystal, and her crystal and mine were in this imaginal space, were connected, and then both of those crystals were connected to the one that I actually had in my hand in Sedona, and so I was using that crystal to help give healing energy to Pat's wound, and I've been a believer that energy follows intent, based on something you said earlier as well, but I believe that. And Pat was doing her own work around it, and so we had visualizations to help, heal and clean and do this, that, and the other. And in less than an hour, it just healed completely over. And why and how, we never knew. But then subsequent to that, a pathologist did another biopsy and said the cancer had come back. So Pat and I did some more work on it, and told the surgeon, who at that time was considering doing a mastectomy, that if he would do these frozen C-sections to see if, in fact, the cancer was there, and he kept taking them and couldn't find any cancer. And so at the end of the surgery, he said, gee, whatever was there, we can't find now, and so they didn't have to do the mastectomy. So what caused what, and who knows, but to me that was a testimony to the power of working in these other realms, and it's influenced that memory in my shamanic work ever after that.
Yes, absolutely. That's so good, so amazing. Well, we're up on a break, and everyone stay with us, don't go away, and we'll give out the phone number if you'd like to call in when we come back.
Experience a different yet profound healing with Reconnective Healing. Includes yet expands beyond any and all known forms of energy healing. The Reconnective Healing spectrum is comprised of the full healing and evolutionary continuum of energy, light, and information. It allows for healings that are not just physical, not just mental, not just emotional, yet go beyond that to bring healing that includes the evolution of your very being and essence. Deborah Beauvais, trained and certified by world-renowned Dr. Eric Pearl, offers appointment hours at Seekonk Family Chiropractic in Seekonk, Massachusetts. For questions or to set up both distance or local sessions, call Deborah at 508-431-1959. Again, 508-431-1959. Or go to lovebyintuition.com. That's lovebyintuition.com.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition Show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be love. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
After narrowly surviving the attack on Sandy Hook Elementary, first grade teacher Caitlin Roy DeBellis was left searching for answers that would never come. Eventually, she chose to focus on questions that could be answered. How do I make sure this tragedy doesn't define us? How do we get our control back? Those two questions led her to found the 501c3 nonprofit organization Classes for Classes. When gifts poured into their classroom, she decided they would help someone else by paying it forward and being kind. This developed into a social network which allows K-8 classrooms to connect so that every student in the United States can learn these crucial lessons. Classes for Classes' mission is to build students' social-emotional intelligence by connecting them to care. All C4C projects are crowdfunded. Any teacher in the U.S. can visit classesforclasses.org. That's classes, 4, classes.org. Sign up today.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
Experience meditations intended to guide you deeper into the core of your being at Awakening Meditations, a weekend workshop with Rick Weinman. Rick has been a vehicle for accelerating spiritual evolution for almost 20 years, utilizing the divine energy and consciousness within the Vortex Healing lineage. Join him to create a space for true transformation to enter your life. Mention discount code DREAM for 20% off when you register for Rick Weinman's Awakening Meditations Workshop, July 30th to August 1st at Omega in Rhinebeck, New York. Learn more at eomega.org.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back. This is a live show, so anyone that would like to call in, if you have a question or comment for Carl or myself, the number is 833-220-1200. Bob is in the house, and he'll connect you for us. 833-220-1200. And we are with Carl Greer. We are talking about his latest book, The Necktie and the Jaguar, a memoir to help you change your story and find fulfillment. You can find it everywhere. And if you'd like to contact or learn more, go on his site. It's carlgreer.com. Greer is G as in go, R as in Rick, EER as in Rick.com, carlgreer.com. So, Carl, how, changing our stories, how can we change those stories, and how do they change our lives?
Well, I think, Deborah, the first step is to be honest with yourself as to what your story is. Because a lot of us tell ourselves a story that we wish it were, or we want others to see. So you start off by telling yourself what your actual story is. And then you say, are you happy with it? And if you're not, why not? And what you need to do to change it. And when people get to that point, then sometimes they try to make changes, and often they're not able to make the changes that they consciously want to make. And I believe the reason is because there's some part of them that doesn't want to change. And that part is unconscious. And so a lot of the writing that I've done is to suggest ways that a person can access those parts of themselves that don't want to change and work with them so that they and the part that do want to change can have a new relationship. And we do that by dream work or shamanic journeying or a Jungian process called active imagination, or actually spending time in nature in certain kinds of ways. So once a person does that and can then get the energy and information to make the changes that they want, then their life changes, and then the story about what you tell about their life would change as well. So that's kind of the sequence that I've seen work, and in my own life, that's what I've done. And in this book that I wrote, Necktie and the Jaguar, at the end of each chapter, I have, based on the themes that were in my life, I have questions for the reader that at least might get them started on that process of looking at their own lives in an honest way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because some of the books I've read through the years, they usually at the end of the chapters may have a little test to do, or things to do, different things one has to do. And those kinds of things never really excited me, and I'm a question person. So I have to say that I really enjoyed each chapter at the end, because it's full of questions, and they're done in a sense where you can question yourself gently, or you can delve right in. It's really up to the reader. So I thank you for the way you did that.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
Yes. And isn't it, don't you think, that's how we learn about ourselves, is being brave enough to ask ourselves, and then, maybe we have a belief system that isn't all that positive. Maybe it's something that we think, but when you become aware of your thoughts and how you think, then it becomes easier to kind of, repattern the thoughts into something that really fits you now. Because, in essence, as we know, when you become awakened and conscious, as you go along your journey, you're still your core, but you're doing things different. You're thinking differently. You're listening, and that's one of the things I liked about your journey, is you learned how to listen to your clients and yourself.
Yeah, one of the big takeaways from my life is the power of listening and taking time to reflect on your, like you say, your own thoughts and your own emotions, and just being present to those without necessarily in the moment trying to do anything about them, but just becoming aware of them. And similarly, with other people, instead of trying to fix their problems or start to talk as soon as you can, just listen, I've learned, and then respond. And that's a great gift if you're really genuinely present for them as a listener.
Right. And it brings me back to the chapter you talk about when you were a clinical psychologist, and I think of a little girl that came in, I think she was only 3 or 4, and she came in and got under your desk, and that first session, nothing was said, and then she left and came back, but then you were listening to what she was actually sharing and getting a better idea of who she was and what was her trauma so that you could help her. I just love those stories that you shared.
Yeah, well, in that one, she was 8 or 9 when she came in, but her sister was 3 or 4, and when she came into the room, she slammed the door on her sister's face and kind of bloodied her nose. Yes. And then with her winter coat, my client went under the table and just was whimpering for an hour, and I would, talked to her occasionally, but she didn't want to have anything to do with me much. But eventually, we talked and we played different games. One of the things we did was we'd tell a story. I'd start it, then she would say something, and then I would say something, and she'd say something. And we played circus, and she would be all the characters in the circus, and assume all the roles. So eventually, we got to be close, and we were able to start the work. But in the first few sessions, I was just trying to be present for her and listen to whatever came up and try to, the best I could, respond appropriately. And those are the kinds of things, obviously, you don't learn in school how to do. It's just kind of you do your best in the moment, and you in spirit, you hope, are going to make a difference.
Right. And wasn't she the little girl that the teacher put in a cage? And thank goodness for you to get involved, and yet you did it gently.
She was. She was all excited to be part of a school play, and then the day of the play, she wasn't able to do it because the teacher had put her in a literal cage, and I was just irate. So I got permission to go to the school, and I talked to the teacher, and the teacher had her reasons, said, that my client was a little unruly, and she had nothing else she could do. But I got an understanding with her afterwards that don't do that again unless she talked to me, and she agreed to that, which you don't know in school systems now how that would work, but she did, and my client did much better during the course of the year, and I think for her to know that I had her back and was willing to stand up for her made a difference.
Right. The things we do to each other. I always think of, here we are, all of the same species, and the harm that we've done to each other or ourselves, but to each other, it's. I always think, well, gee, it isn't another species from another planet that's coming to destroy us. We're destroying each other, and it comes to be that we're wired for that dark place, and so it's like, who would put a kid in a cage unless they were demented themselves in some fashion? But anyway. All of the different stories. So this is why, everyone, you need to get the book, because it's a fascinating journey that Carl has experienced. So, so one of the other things that are on my mind is, in the book, there's so many different powerful energies, unseen worlds. Tell us one of the stories, or even, and I might be wrapping a couple of things together here, but what was the incident that put your life into this realm of shamanic healing and all, more of a clinical versus the business side?
In my mid-40s, some part of my soul was yearning for something else. And that's when I started to study psychology, and then eventually the Jungian part. And each of those, Deborah, got me closer to that mythopoetic part and kind of fed me in a different way. But the shamanic part, when I was around 60 or a little bit before, did that the most. And I had some experiences and shamanic journeys that were very transformative for me, both with the medicine plants and without the medicine plants. And it gave me a new way of looking at life, and that made all the difference after that point in time.
Yeah, and you studied with Alberto, is it Velodo?
Yes, I studied with, yes.
Yes.
And I taught at his school for a while, and he and I remained friends.
Yes, you've had such a full life, Carl. And so you went on a few journeys with him. He invited you, and you've met other shamans in the jungle. And, that's really where the Jaguar came, and then you realized you were the Jaguar. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I was doing work with Alberto once, the two of us in a mountain, and the lessons for us were going to be Jaguar and fire, and we had done an I Ching reading with how can we get closer to spirit, and in the course of that work, and this is where if you haven't done this kind of work, it gets into the mysterious. I had a stone that he had given me to work with, and in it allegedly contained the energy of a jaguar that a shaman had put into it centuries before, facing west, most likely in Machu Picchu. So during the ceremony, the stone started to throb, Deborah, and his eyes started to move. And I said, Alberto, this thing's throbbing. And he kind of exclaimed, well, feed it, because energetically it was starting to feed on us. So there's something called Florida water, which I spritzed on it and, fed it. And that was part of our journey that night. And the metaphor for me was, I got to start feeding some of these parts of myself, or they're going to feed on me. It's like these unconscious parts we talked about earlier that if you don't bring up, they're still going to be there. And
right.
So you need to give them air and light and relate to them. And that was a very powerful experience, a metaphysical experience for me, but a real one. And that night, Alberto and I shared in this space other similar experiences together. We shared the same kind of images and whatnot, which was very powerful. It was a bonding experience for the two of us, but also it was very enlightening for me going forward.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, well, we need to run for our last break. Everyone, stay with us. Don't go away. More with Carl Greer.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition Show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be love. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
Join world-renowned tarot card readers at Omega Institute this July for Masters of the Tarot, Finding Meaning in the Cards. Mary K. Greer, Rachel Pollack, and other professional tarot readers share proven methods to give effective readings that transform lives, yours as well as your clients'. To receive 20% off, mention discount code DREAM when you register for Masters of the Tarot at Omega in Rhinebeck, New York, July 23rd to 25th. Learn more at eomega.org.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
Why are we here? How can we be happy? Questions asked from millennials to boomers. Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy answers them using true stories of grit, grace, and love. James Redfield, author of The Celestine Prophecy, wrote in the foreword, "This book is a seminar about emerging truths and offers grounded solutions through the art of the comeback." Dr. Bernie Siegel, a contributing author, wrote, "Bodies die, but spirits and consciousness survive and recycle." So, grab some tissues, open your book, and prepare to cry and laugh till it heals. Crappy to Happy by Reverend Ariel Patricia and Kathleen O'Keefe Canavas. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and booksellers worldwide.
It's a child's job to play, to learn, and to have fun. It's an adult's job to keep them safe. Did you know that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18? Every day, families enter the Children's Advocacy Center because a child's courage to tell someone what happened to them. Keeping our children safe starts with a conversation. This is Michelle Aranger, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. Learn more on how to keep your child safe. Visit cacofbc.org. This message made possible by the Fall River Rotary Club.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back. There's still time to call if anyone has a question or a comment. 833-220-1200. Carl, with everything that you've experienced to date, and I'm sure you're going to experience much more as long as we are here on Earth, would you change anything if you could?
Kind of the sequence of my life, Deborah, I don't think I changed. It just kind of evolved the way it did. I'd say some of my characteristics, I would be more patient than perhaps I was earlier. I would cram less things into my life than I did earlier, and I would hoped I could have become a better listener earlier in my life. So those are things that if I had it to do over, I would have tried to do differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I spend more time in nature. That's been very healing for me in the last last 20 years that I've done more of that.
Yeah. Well, the world that you were in with oil business, negotiations, it's a whole different world. And if one is lucky, they become conscious to a point where even though they're in that environment, they're taking time to meditate or taking time to watch the bugs outside or the birds singing, which you actually did because as time went on, you started to blend the two or balance the two, right?
I did. I prided myself for a while that I was good at compartmentalizing. I could just do this for a while, and I could do that for a while, but there's an energetic cost to doing that, and as I've gotten older, I think my categories of my life are more interwoven with each other, and that's been freeing up in a way that I didn't know until I've done that.
Right, and you're in touch with your emotions now, which, even back then, men are trained to not show their emotions and to stuff them inside, but in these last, decade or so or more, boys, there's so many people working with little boys. Some do not have a father. They don't have, that interaction. But, people are working with boys so that they can share their inner thoughts and what's bothering them or what's hurting them. And that's, once you, as you know from your own experience, once we're able to verbalize what's bothering us or what's hurting us, that alone is freeing to the mind and the spirit.
Oh, so much so. And as I said at the beginning, growing up in the Midwest in a steel towns, our men didn't share a lot, and they certainly didn't express a lot of feelings, and I learned those lessons. My mom died when I was just 8, and we never talked about it. And my dad modeled kind of stuffing his emotions, and I picked that up for a lot of years.
Right. I can't imagine not being able to express, the loss of your mom. It's just so as a little boy. So again, it's the things that we do, and then you got to think on the other end of the spectrum that every parent does the best that they can with what they know at that time. And years later, when they're able to reflect and ponder, then they can see the things that they actually did and and probably wish that they could do it differently.
Yeah, well put. I mean, you'd ask, what would I do differently? Well, you have to have a chance to reflect and ponder, as you said, in order to even come up with what you do differently. Because for a lot of us, life goes by quick, and you get into a routine or a pattern, and you don't get out of it.
Right. It's like, where did the time go?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. It seems like when you become the age of retirement, which most people don't retire at that age, but it seems like then you start thinking about, oh my gosh, so start thinking of all the different things the choices you made, and but that again is all part of the journey.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
So we only have a little bit of time left. What do you want to leave the listeners with? I mean, about the book or anything else, Carl, you want to really put out there?
Well, I guess I'd say take time to think about your life. Where have you been? Where are you now? And where would you like to go? And what do you need to do to get there? And be willing to make little teeny changes at the margin. I think those can result in, over time, bigger changes. And figure out ways to work with the unseen worlds. By that I mean your dreams, the world of nature. Start to imagine yourself as part of a larger picture. When you're in nature, start to think that nature is observing you just like you're observing it, and it kind of relativizes things. You try to relativize your life so that you feel more freed up to make changes. Be patient. That's one of the things I'm trying to learn. Be a good listener. And in small ways, try to be there for others. You don't have to give away a lot of money, but just by listening well to somebody, that's a gift. And volunteer. Just spend time to make a difference in the world. And those are things that and spend time in nature. Those would be things, Deborah, that I would say might be helpful to some people.
Yes, to all people. Well said. And I'm glad that you said it doesn't have to be a lot. Everything that we experience or make choices to do, if we are volunteering or helping someone, and it can be, it can be something as much as just checking in to an elderly neighbor, just to say hello, and that human contact is so powerful. There's little things that we can do, and then we can build on that and go from there.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Do you feel as though you have to be really in touch with yourself and knowing your truth and loving yourself in order to serve in a bigger way?
I think that's an interesting question. I think to because you can say you can be none of those things, but you're still going to just serve in a bigger way, and therefore you fake it till you make it.
You're
I
right.
believe though. I believe that the more you know yourself, the more freed up you can be to truly be there for others. I believe that. And I believe that if you can be connected to a spiritual practice, however you think about that, that will help you be there for others as well. And then have the intent. Like we said earlier, energy follows intent. Have the intent to be there for others, and let spirit and you kind of work out how that's going to look, but recognize that you have a role in that in addition to spirit, in my worldview.
Very good. And you mentioned intention, and I feel as though right now, this time that we're in, the guidance is so right there. You know, all you have to do is put the intention out, and then the universe starts creating the magic, and all you need to do is hold that space in your mind that all things are possible. And I just think this is a special time that we're living in, and we probably don't even know the scope of it all.
That is for sure. Yeah, we don't know the scope of it all. That's amen.
And I always
that.
say how much we know. You know, like you learned this and you learned that, but really, how much do I know? Not much.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to make a crack as you get older, and if you had a little wine, you know, I don't know how much brain you have left to kind of know stuff too.
That's a good one. Well, Carl, I want to thank you for coming on the show and honoring and gracing our airwaves with your wisdom. So thank you for that. And we can have you back, too, later on. So, everyone, The Necktie and the Jaguar. Get the memoir by Carl Greer and go on his site, carlgreer.com. And pass the show along, pass it to your friends, listen more than once or twice, and you'll reap a lot of information, even if you wait for 3 months and listen to it again on demand. But pass this information on, because this is how we help each other, this is how we grow our souls and find more joy and a better place to live in this world that we are living in. So until we meet again, au revoir.
Are you seeking a clearer path to love? Then tune in to the Love by Intuition show next week. All designed to your highest good. To contact Deborah Beauvais, owner of Empowered Connections, call her at 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or link on to lovebyintuition.com. Remember, we are all one, and we are all part of the miracle of love.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.